Hey, this is Matt and Chris at the Quantum Leap podcast. Today on the show we are super excited because we've got a very special guest with us. We're really thrilled that we've got some time today to speak with Martin Gero. Martin, welcome to the show.
Hello, thrilled to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. It's quite the get for the podcast. We've been speaking to so many people associated with the show, and you were one of the last ones that we really wanted to hear from. So thank you so much.
Holdout. You're very welcome.
And what great timing as well, because as we record this, we're on the cusp of the season ending on Monday. It's Friday now, so we're looking forward to seeing how everything wraps up. So perhaps we could start by, since we're now at the end of the first season, just maybe if I could ask you to look back over, in a nutshell, some of the highlights for you over the last year, some of those unexpected, maybe highs.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible season. For me, so much of it is about the making of the show, and we try to keep it. The goal always is to have a joyful endeavor, and a joyful experience in the making of these things, and we've had such an incredible writers' room and such an incredible cast. It's really been a privilege to make this show with everybody. The crew here in Los Angeles is phenomenal. So yeah, we're so fortunate. It was it's an incredibly difficult show to make, as you can imagine. Like it's basically like making a pilot every week, and so it took a while for us to get our feet under us, but it's the ingenuity that this whole crew has brought has been really incredible, and I'm just so grateful more than anything for the you're talking to me, but you've talked to some others as well, but 500 people work on these episodes, and it's deeply humbling to be a part of something like this.
Well, I mean, you had mentioned that, starting with the pilot, we realized that when you were coming on, there were some shifts behind the scenes from the original pilot to the second pilot that you helped craft. Can you maybe speak to that and maybe talk about some of the key challenges of bringing the first season of the show together, considering that not only did you have a whole new cast to work with, but you also sort of had to deal with the legacy of Quantum Leap when you were considering how to map out the season?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a tricky show to get right. It's one of those iconic brands of television. Everyone, even if you weren't a fan of Quantum Leap, even if you didn't watch Quantum Leap, about Quantum Leap. You may be able to hum the theme song. So it's just one of those iconic television brands, and so of course it makes sense to reboot those in today's environment. But we don't want to fuck it up, and we didn't want it to be. We wanted it to be the right tone, and we wanted it to be the right feel. We wanted it to have the proper deference to the old show while trying to cut a new path for ourselves. And look, it's very, very hard to do that. The bar is very, very high. Their expectations are very, very high, both on the fan base, on the corporate base, on the network base. So yeah, it was a tricky needle to thread, but I for all of the behind the scenes goings on in the early days, none of that affected what made it to the screen, and we were very, very conscious of no matter how hard the show was to make in certain moments, that the quality of the show was being unaffected, and that was incredibly important to us. And again, I can't speak more highly of our incredible writers' room, the cast and the crew, for weathering the early days as we got our feet under ourselves.
Well, I think I can speak on behalf of the whole podcast team that we've been hardcore fans for 30 years, and you did not fuck it up. So there's that.
Great, thank God.
Just maybe walking through the season a bit. Chris started at the beginning. Clearly, you had. You and the team had a vision for the season. Can you talk about any pivots or changes that had to be made? Just thinking particularly in the fact that the season length changed, then you found out you were getting a season 2. How did that change what you had planned out?
Well, the good news is I'm always very confident about season length. So we always design the show in such a way where, like, if we had to have ended it on 13, we could have. But like I always hope for more. You know, like if they were going to cut us off at 13, the show probably would have been canceled, and so I wouldn't have to worry about wrapping up the show necessarily. To be honest, you know, so it's like. So for us, we were like, it's kind of the same thing we did in when I did Blind Spot. Like, we aimed to have around 20-ish episodes, you know, and then could always kind of contract last minute if we wanted to, and that's what we did here. You know, we had once I came in, you know, we had a pretty clear idea of what this ending was going to be and how to build towards it, and so that's what we've been doing all season. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. And we, you know, as fans have noticed the key difference between this series and the Legacy series, of course, is the fact that we get so much more back at the project. So can you speak to the process of how you went about maybe incorporating that element into the series and balancing it with more of the classic Quantum Leap feel?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the leaps drive the show, right? Like, it's right there in the title. So, like, you know, you can't be taking air away from the leaps unless it's really worthwhile. And so for us, I think, you know, coming into a modern television environment with, you know, having to service basically two pots, very different pots of viewers. There are the fans that have loved the show and, like, have a great sentimental attachment to it, and also have a very... You know, what's crazy about Quantum Leap is, like, it's kind of like loving the Twilight Zone. You know, like, it's everyone's version of what Quantum Leap is, all their I'm sure you guys run into this, is very different based on the, like, what your top 10 favorite episodes of Quantum Leap are. That's a very different show than someone else's favorite top 10 episodes of Quantum Leap. So, you know, I think, like, trying to find some sort of, like, well, what are the base, like, you know, the you know, hope, humor, heart, history, you know, like, those really are the four tenets of, like, what the show has to do. So it was more capturing a feel, you know, than it was like a specific, like, well, these episodes work, these don't, you know, I like these episodes, not these ones. And so it was about, okay, how do we do that? But then how do we, for an audience who's never seen the show and who are used to, like, a slightly more serialized storytelling, you know, because there's fully like 20 or 30% of the audience that's going to wait until this last episode is aired to watch the whole season in, like, a weekend, right? And so for them, we wanted to make it feel like we were telling, you know, a full round beginning, middle, and end story this season. So it was just about figuring out how to do that in a way where we weren't hurting the feel of the show, the vibe of the show. We weren't protruding on, like, why the show was successful in the first place, but then also giving the show somewhere else to go, some other people, and to also, like, give Ray a day off every now and again and not kill him. So, like, you know, to balance, to, like, just even in the modern economy of, like, how to make television, like, you know, you need a standing set to, like, for the show to work, you know? And so, and it's hard to do when you're in a different timeline every episode. So that gave us the consistency that we needed to pay for the leaps, quite frankly. And then it's just been an evolution over the course of the season with these actors and these writers, you know, trying to now, like, find enough room for, you know, Ian and Magic and Jen to, like, have a dimensionality that you care about them, that they're not just, like, funny exposition machines, you know, that there is nuance to their character and that they are dealing with stuff as well. And that's actually the thing I'm most excited about in season 2, is I think we figured out a way over the course of this season how to involve them more in the show, if that makes sense.
It does, and it kind of leads to our next line of questioning, if you will. Now that you do have the first season established, and you have this new quantum established not only for old fans, but for perhaps new fans, you have your footing under you when it comes to these characters. How are we going to see that evolve in season 2, and does that open the door for some maybe more direct callbacks to the Legacy series because people are more comfortable with the new dynamic as it stands? So now you can kind of, you know, broaden out on it. We're really curious as fans about that.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things that, like, we're, the second season definitely is going to be a little less plotty. You know, like it'll be a little less like there will definitely be serialized stories that we're telling, but like the present day stories won't be monopolized by like explaining time travel math. You know, where like someone's got to always just be like, whoa, 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 say that again, but slower. You
no
know,
headaches
like,
for magic.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like we have Ernie Hudson, who's this like incredible actor who's got this amazing gravitas. I would love to like use that on the show more, and not just have him like again, him and Jen and Ian try to figure out what all this means. So when we simplify that story, that suddenly gives the room for those present day characters to have an emotional life that is like so much more fuller, and makes those scenes seem more important, if that makes sense. So again, I can't give away too much because like, you know, we don't, part of the fun is like going on the ride for me. I'm an anti-spoiler guy. So I think like, but I think we're doing something in the second season that I think will allow those stories to be, for the show to be as engaging, for the leaps to be bigger and more dynamic, but to have the present day stories feel more grounded and vital.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you just if we can maybe close out with this, you are, you know, doing a lot with this show. You've obviously had, you know, a big part in this huge team effort. Is there something specifically that you can point to in season one that you're proud of, that you want to take credit for, that you think you helped directly influence when building this new Quantum Leap?
No, I mean, honestly, and I'm not just being Pollyanna about it, but like, you know, the greatest thing about this, what we do, is that it's an ensemble. Like, it's a collaborative medium, you know, and I think the best showrunners are curators, not dictators, you know, and so like, I'm happy to be, you know, someone's got to make the call at the end of the day when there's like a disagreement, you know, and someone's got to establish what the tone of the show is, certainly. And so I guess like if anything, you know, that's what Dean and I have been trying to do, is find like what the tone is. But no, I mean, we're it's such an incredible privilege to be working with not only, again, a group of incredible writers that is bringing so much of themselves to these stories. Like the reason the old show worked, in my opinion, was like, you know, the leaps felt very lived in, you know, and to do that, you need writers to like open some veins into those scripts and bring a lot of themselves and share their lives with the viewer. And I think like, if anything, it's been my job to create an environment where that's possible for people to come and bring their stories and apply them into the Quantum Leap universe, you know. You know, so many of the shows, the original shows that resonated with me truly were, you know, for like my, you know, young kid living in Ottawa to suddenly have an experience that I could just never have. And so it was to be exposed to a community or a culture that was so different from mine, and one that I maybe misunderstood. And so, you know, I'm incredibly proud of the entire team for the taking on what felt like at times a monolithic, you know, endeavor, and really rising to the challenge. And so no, it's difficult for me to be like, that's me, that's what, yeah, I did that was cool. I'm proud. The other reason that was awesome is it's just like, that's just not how TV is made, you know. Like, so many people put their hands on it, from the writers, and then our incredible directors, our phenomenal crew, then the incredible editors, and everyone in post-production. We have truly one of the greatest sound teams, and, you know, the musicians that bring it. Like, again, it's like, if anything, I just have the distinct, you know, joy of being able to interact with everybody and see every piece of it along the way, and see how much everyone elevates the material. So yeah, no, I'm just real proud of the, you know, the 500 plus people that show up every day and try try to not f it up.
Now that you have the luxury of knowing that you have a season 2 and I guess the number of episodes that you have to produce, do you have season 2 pretty well mapped out at this point? Because I know you've already started production on it.
Yeah, we have we're real excited about season 2, and our idea for season 2 is part of the reason we got such an early pickup. We just had a really good idea for season 2, and we're glad that our network partners agreed. And so it's so far so good. I mean, we learned a lot. Obviously, doing these shows, you're constantly making mistakes. The idea is to never let that mistake hit the screen. But we're learning constantly about what this iteration of the show is good at and what it's bad at. And so to be able to now come into a new round of stories, they feel bigger and more assured. The first episode back is the biggest episode we've ever done scope wise. I mean, it's even bigger than our pilot, both of them. And so it allows us to, again, just tell some cooler stories that I think we weren't sure, we wouldn't have known how to do physically in the first season. But now that we have a shorthand now with our department heads and we have an understanding of what costs money and what doesn't here in Los Angeles. It's constantly evolving and changing. But that's why the writers are in charge, right? It's it's our job to kind of know what the constraints of production are and then tailor stories to that constraint in a way that doesn't feel constrained. And so for us, it's been an incredible year of learning that we've all been able to now reinvest all of that knowledge into not only making season 1 feel better emotionally, but also just production value wise to be holy shit, this is a whole new level of Quantum Leap.
Wow, we are so looking forward to it. You have no idea.
Excited.
I have some idea. I mean, you love the show enough to make a podcast, so I get it. I'm there with you. I love it.
Well, it's been such an amazing journey that we've been on over the last year. We are so excited to see the next stages, and we're so excited to have been able to spend some time with you, hearing your experiences of it and hearing what's coming up. Martin, once again, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Well, thank you, and I mean, truly, it's because of fans like you that the show exists. Somebody had to keep the torch going, between that iteration and this one, and it was because of people like you and people that go to conventions and write the fanfic and keep it alive in the ether that people are like, oh, we really do need to do this. So thank you and everybody that listens to the podcast for your enthusiasm, not only this year, but in the past 30 years that have allowed this show to exist and see a new light for not only you, but a new fan base. And it means a lot. So thank you so much.